Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to have you here with us today. I am Andra, a product design manager here at Deel. And in today's session, together with my colleagues, Jose, we're going to show you what a good portfolio looks like and what are we evaluating.
Yeah, hello, Andra. So it's Jose. I'm a senior manager here at Deel. And then, as you were saying, probably this week I have been reviewing around 20 portfolios. So it's part of our day-to-day basis. So yeah, we were just thinking why we are not there sharing. Where are our thoughts, the way that we evaluate that, just to help you to create better portfolios out there. We are going to be opening some team real portfolios and then having our thoughts around that. And you can understand a bit better how we think.
The review of your portfolio starts earlier than you might think. Usually, when I receive a resume and a portfolio, I always take a look at the link to see, is it a PDF format? Is it a Figma link? Is it, kind of like a personalized website? And my advice here is that you should go beyond the PDF version because it's not a good way to showcase your work, and try to build your own portfolio that really reflects your personality and can show your work in all of the ways that you need it to, such as videos, animations, and everything that you might need to add to show the final results of your work. Now, Jose, I have a test for you, an experiment with you. I'm gonna share a portfolio and I would be curious to get kind of like your first impression, your first thought.
Okay, so definitely doesn't seem like a PDF. Seems just a lot of movement. To be honest, seems like this guy is using what we call here crafting motion. He's just able to communicate his stories by using motion animations and things like that. That is actually really good, and especially now where we have a lot of tools that can help us, not just to using mockups and endless carousels with screens and things like that. So yeah, really cool. And it seems like someone with a specific personality, is trying to transferring that personality on that piece.
Yes, definitely. I agree with you. What I like about this portfolio is that you really get to see that Victor likes to experiment and he has multiple case studies, but each one has its own style, its own way of interacting with it. And I really like that. I like when designers just play with their craft. I think that we lost this playfulness in our work and it needs to come back. This is the only way in which you can get amazing results in design, is just trying things out, having an open mind and just playing with it. It's not that serious at the end of the day, and especially when it comes to your portfolio, it's your work, so you can present it however you want.
Yeah, it definitely helps you to communicate your personality. But then also, it feels to me like if you are not really good into UI or into craft itself, there is even other ways to show your personality. So not be scared about that. For example, this portfolio here, it's really cool, to be honest. Craft level championship. But then what it's really interesting is not just relying everything on the result, it's displaying in you all of the interest. You can feel they're passionate about creating character, that it's also just one single skills or how to use behavioral or how to, I don't know, create something with AIs. To me, the main learning from here is at least make sure that you are putting something that you are really proud of when you are closing your portfolio and applying for a job, because it feels like you need to have that pieces of your personality as a designer that we are going to find really interesting, even beyond the use cases, to be honest.
Yeah, I think also this is very, very good advice that you shouldn't treat your portfolio just as another thing to do. This is your opportunity to show your best work, to show who you are, and at the end of the day, you should be proud with how that is showing your work and how it's portraying you as a designer. Very good advice.
Yeah, but we both know that it's not just making things beautiful. If you're working in a company or if you're wanted to work, like especially if you want to work for Deel, where you are trying to solve a lot of complex problem. Of course, the first impression that you can make by creating this crafting motion or by creating something unique, but then we need to deep dive into what makes really like a strong use case, for example, with problem solving. So what do you think on that, Andra?
Yes, you are right here. At Deal, we have really big and complex problems that we need to solve, and we need people, designers in particular, who are equipped to deal with these sort of problems. We need to see in your case studies or from your previous experience that this is something that you had to deal with. Let's cover also some other more practical things that we are evaluating our candidates on. To showcase this, actually, we have a portfolio from Emily, and I think she's doing a few things very well here in her portfolio. First of all, besides explaining us a little bit about the company, the context in which she faced this problem, her team setup, she presents very well the problem description. The problem description needs to be presented in your portfolio, having in mind that the person that is evaluating or it's reading this case study doesn't have all of the knowledge that you have. So they need to understand easily and fast what are you trying to do. And I think that this one does it pretty well. What is very important for you, Jose, to see in the problem description?
For me, more than the description itself, what it found like really interesting, it is to deep dive into the depth of the problem that designer are able to surface. You know, for example, it's not the same to say, okay, I wanted to solve just a general issue like reducing churn or increasing sales.
Yeah.
Kind of like the same problems that every single designer have on their companies. What is really interesting for me is to understand, okay, that's these designer understood like how deep is the problem that they are trying to solve, and even the scope that that problem is kind of like framing on that specific problem, no? Because you probably know, like if you're trying to solve something completely wide or really really big, it's quite more difficult. So something that I like to see on use cases is people that focus into a specific problem. That is where it feels to me it's more easy to get more results or more impact.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think that they need to present the problem they are trying to solve, even if it's a small thing. But maybe also what I find it interesting or useful is that they understand that this happens in a context and how does this fit to the bigger picture and the long-term vision of the product. Maybe you've seen this a lot, that people in their case study, they are just following the boilerplate template, right? They show you how they went through the standard process, everything went by the book, they followed all of the steps. What is the feeling that you get when you see that?
Yeah, probably my feeling, especially when I see like this double diamond process. I mean, it's not like a red flag, but it seems like more like a template that you want to fill out rather than just real work. So yeah, my recommendation for people is just say it's good to follow a process, but then follow the process that take you to that results. I mean, and doesn't necessarily need to be these perfect double diamond, things like that. It's good to have a process behind, shows that you already know how to operate in a certain way. But what is really interesting for me is to see just like what really happened behind on that project.
I feel like there is a certain level of maturity that is displayed when you show that, hey, I actually adapted the process, I bended the process to my needs, to my specific needs, and I made it work. Rather than I followed everything by the book, everything went fine. Like, we all know that in reality that rarely happens. It's not something very frequent. Now, one more thing that I wanted to highlight from Emily's portfolio is the fact that she covered the research and discovery phase, and she put a lot of emphasis on the key findings rather than walking us through all of the artifacts of the process and all of the operational things that happened. She focused on the key findings, what we are usually interested in. This is like the whole reason why we are doing research. And one thing that it's worth highlighting here is that besides listing the key findings, it is very important that you actually tell us what did you do with them, how did this influence your stakeholders and the direction of the product. How do you feel in general, Jose, about this phase? And what do you think should be added, should be covered in the research and discovery phase in the
Yeah, for
portfolio?
sure. If it's part of your process, you need to include it. I mean, to have like a really good foundation in a project or in a use case is essential, to be honest. But then what it feels to me is just sometimes we're using research just again to fill that gap. Just yeah, I have made like some interviews. There are like these inside, and then we can continue to exploration. So what it feels to me really interesting is to see like that connection with the problem itself and even the reason behind why did you choose to research with user. Did you was using the data that you already have in your company, analytics, business, even stakeholder interviews? It feels to me like sometimes we're using research in a way that really general, for me, it sounds more like a template, to be honest, than when you discover that someone that is not just talking around research because you need to do it, but because it's just like the channel to achieve your goals, is when you discover, okay, this is like well done, or this is like embed in the product itself rather than just like one step. So focus on finding and focus on the impact that the findings have in the next phases.
Perfect. One more thing that I want to highlight here, and I think that this is something that a lot of people actually miss to add in their portfolios, is the explorations that they did along the way. They show us a few screens of the final results, the final product that they shipped, but they don't tell us the story of I tried option A, B, C, and this is why I discarded these options. And I think Emily does this pretty well. You can see that she explains the path forward, she explains the concept, and then she walks us through the pros and cons of this option. Also, she shows us a prototype. This is very important. Please keep in mind to add, if you have any sort of prototypes, all the screens, everything, all sorts of assets that you can add for us to be able to see your work, it is very, very important that you add it. We have exploration number 2. You can see that explains the directions, again, pros and cons, and then she walks us through the decision that was made. Jose, I know that you have a very strong stand when it comes to designer influencing stakeholders. Can you tell us a little bit more
Yeah,
about
I
it?
mean, and you mentioned doing exploration and then including all of the different exploration. It's really important for me to show, like, even it helps me to know, like, how far you can go when you're exploring something and how easy it is for you to convert into something more specific. But then it's even important to me to understand why do we need to, for example, have three different explorations. It is just because you are helping someone to make a decision. It is just because you have something unclear that doesn't came from the user research. It's really important for me to found really reason behind all of the desperation, because to be honest, all of these operations are like time that our designers need to invest. So I need to make sure that we're investing because that is going to be good for the entire process. And then around like making a decision, it feels to me really important to notice when I'm reading a portfolio that designers have an ownership on what he's doing. So sometimes I notice that it's more like, okay, we have done that 3 4 exploration and this is the final solution. And then I need to feel like, why are you happy with that final solution? If you are not happy, why you are not happy? What did you made to influence to make it maybe to change or to a completely different direction, even to include their pitfalls? It's just like I was exploring that and was just completely disconnected on what we're trying to achieve. It feels to me it's just a big opportunity there to include a lot of learnings and to kind of like stamp that with your being the driver of that decision or that design project.
Yeah, I definitely agree here with you, Jose, because a lot of times designers feel like, oh, my job is done. I created these explorations. The ball is in other
Yeah.
stakeholders' court, but that's not true, right? And the more mature you are, the more senior you are, you need to at least influence that decision.
Yeah, completely.
One more thing is that a lot of times our projects don't go according to the plan. And I think that it's very important that even from these experiences, designers get to learn something. They take a moment to reflect on what happened, what went well, what didn't, reflect on that, and these learnings they can take on to the next project or in their next role. I particularly like when designers add these sort of takeaways or learnings from the project. What do you think?
For me, it's the thing that made the entire portfolio more interesting. I mean, at the end, a portfolio shouldn't be vision, just a place where you are putting all of your flashy project. It's more like a journal where you are reflecting the way that you are learning, the way that you are interacting with other designer, with the stakeholder, and how is your process that for you to keep learning as a designer. I know normally we include that as a footer or something like that, just like a 3 bullet point, like my main learnings, even if I'm thinking in my personal portfolio is that way. So I'm thinking, yeah, like even like completely different approach. It should be more like trying to learn from every single stage. For example, from research, what did you learn? There is something that you can apply for the next project that is going to improve it. And it feels to me like if you are doing that, you are projecting an image that you are really a learner or someone that is really quick on learning things and then improving the way that they are operating on design. So yeah, for sure, like something really important.
Before we wrap it up, I want to acknowledge something very important here. Portfolios come in all shapes and forms, and we make sure to assess each one of them individually on its own terms. We are not trying to fit everyone into the same box. What Jose and I share today is our own personal perspective, and while every hiring manager brings their own experience and expectations to evaluating portfolios, we do operate from a few shared guiding principles that I want to cover now. Craft. We care deeply about visual quality, taste, and execution. Range. We want to see multiple projects from different companies that cover different problem spaces, that have different visual languages. We want to see that you have real varied experience. Product mindset. We're looking for designers who drive the product forward, not just execute. Show us how you shaped the problem, how you understood the business goals, the constraints, and how all of that informed your design. Also, ground your decisions in something real like data, research, or user feedback. Complexity. We work in a complex problem space with multiple user types, difficult workflows, and high-stake decisions. So make sure that you show us projects that reflect that kind of work and challenge. Process. Take us through the journey, how you explored, how you validated, how you iterated, and don't give us a templated copy-paste process across all of your projects, right? But show us how you adapted your approach to the specific problem you were trying to solve. And communication. Your case studies should tell a story that we can easily follow. It should cover problem, approach, reasoning, and the result. We should understand what you did, why you did it, and what exactly happened. Now, I want to reiterate one thing. At the end of the day, your portfolio should reflect who you are, both as a person and as a designer. So have fun with it and put in your best work and make sure it's a good reflection of your skills and capabilities and that it paints a clear picture of who you are for the hiring manager.